Hey everyone! Today we're looking at something literally right above our heads that most of us never even notice. We're decoding the hidden secrets of global flight maps for this explainer. We're going to look at why certain parts of our sky are completely off limits to aviation. It's this fascinating mix of extreme geographical phenomena and intense human secrecy, and I can't wait to dive into this with you.
Right this very second, there's a staggering average of 9,500 commercial planes flying through the sky. If you pull up a live flight tracker, the world map almost looks like a giant crowded swarm of bees. It's chaotic, it's busy, and it covers almost every inch of the globe. Well, almost.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because when you look closely at that global flight swarm, you're going to spot these massive, gaping black holes, entire regions where not a single aircraft dares to cross. It looks as if the planes are purposefully avoiding these spots. And the reality? They absolutely are. But why? What invisible walls exist up there in the sky? Here is our flight plan. We'll start with the empty skies mystery, move into nature's giants, face the volcanic ash threat, cross over into human barriers, and finally, tackle the ultimate secret of Area 51.
Section 1. Nature's Giants. We're talking mountains and craters. So let's think about the terrifying math of a cabin decompression emergency. Normally, you're cruising along happily at 35,000 feet, right? But if cabin pressure fails, those oxygen masks drop, and pilots have exactly 20 minutes of emergency oxygen. In that super tight 20-minute window, protocol dictates they must drop the plane down to 10,000 feet, where the air is actually safe to breathe. But here's the massive problem. The Tibetan Plateau averages 14,000 feet in height. Dropping to 10,000 feet there is mathematically and physically impossible. You'd literally crash straight into the earth.
Because of that extreme altitude, this massive 2.5 million square kilometer region is completely avoided. It spans across 9 different countries. Geographically speaking, flying over Tibet would be an incredibly useful shortcut directly connecting China to Europe and the Middle East. But honestly, on top of that altitude issue, the extreme heights whip up dangerous, severe upward wind turbulence. It bounces off the peaks and can completely destabilize an aircraft. So, airlines, they just take the long way around.
But hey, mountains aren't the only earthly danger here. We've also got craters. There are roughly 178 impact and mining craters scattered around the world. Now, if you're up at 35,000 feet, these are no big deal. But for low-flying planes and helicopters, they are deadly traps. It's all because of a phenomenon called the vortex effect. It works like this. The deeper the crater, the hotter the bottom gets. That hot air rises really quickly, while the cold surface air rushes down. This collision creates a literal suction force, an invisible physics trap that can pull a low-flying aircraft right out of the sky. Wild, right? Section 2. The volcanic ash threat. And this brilliantly illustrates our next natural barrier.
Back in January 2022, an underwater volcano erupted near Tonga in the South Pacific Ocean, with so much force it was recorded by satellites. The ash clouds from these kinds of eruptions reach thousands of feet into the sky, creating a brutal environment for any machine. See, this isn't just soft, fluffy smoke. Volcanic ash is essentially microscopic jagged rock. Flying through it will literally shatter a commercial aircraft's windshield. And even worse, when that rock gets sucked into incredibly hot jet engines, it instantly melts and then solidifies, completely destroying the mechanics from the inside out.
This exact danger actually changed aviation rules forever. Take a look at June 24, 1982. A flight heading from London to New Zealand accidentally flew right over an active volcanic cloud. Back then, smoking was still allowed on planes. So at the 5-minute mark, people just thought, a passenger was lighting up. But then, this heavy smell of sulfur hit the cabin. By the 10-minute mark, that melted ash caused all 4 engines to completely die. The heavy jet plunged from 37,000 feet all the way down to 12,000 feet. Miraculously, down at that lower altitude, 3 of the engines managed to restart, and the plane narrowly escaped. Ever since that harrowing day, pilots simply do not risk flying over active volcanoes.
All right, Section 3. Human barriers. Let's talk politics and security.
When we pivot to man-made barriers, North Korea is pretty much considered the most unpredictable airspace in the world. Normally, in global aviation, if a country is going to conduct a military or missile test, protocol dictates they give days of advance warning. They're required to establish radio contact to warn any commercial flights in the nearby airspace. North Korea? Well, they just don't follow this protocol.
This lack of warning builds into an absolute logistical nightmare for pilots, because North Korea frequently fires missiles, often right into the Japanese Ocean without giving any prior notice or radio warnings. The sheer unpredictability is simply way too high a risk. It literally forces every major commercial airline to entirely circumvent this airspace. They will gladly burn tons of extra fuel just to safely bypass the whole country.
Now, what's really interesting about this next one is that it busts a massive global myth. The holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia is one of the most important places of worship for Muslims worldwide. There's this really popular myth that claims planes can't fly over the Masjid al-Haram because it supposedly sits over the Earth's center of gravity, making it physically impossible for planes or even birds to fly over. Actually, scratch that. It is purely a myth, and the restriction is based entirely on strict human intervention.
The Saudi government strictly enforces this total no-fly zone for highly practical, logical reasons. First up is security. You've got millions of pilgrims gathered in Mecca at any given time. If any tragic aviation accident happened overhead, the loss of life would just be catastrophic. Second is acoustic preservation. Mecca is completely surrounded by mountains. If heavy jets flew over, those mountains would echo and basically double or triple the loud engine noise, really disturbing the pilgrims. It's for this exact same reason, avoiding low-altitude noise pollution, that Mecca doesn't even have its own local airport.
And that brings us to Section 4, Area 51, the ultimate secret.
Located out in Nevada in the U.S., this top-secret Air Force base covers a massive 7,500 square kilometers. We all know the conspiracies about UFOs and secret military weapons, right? Well, from the ground level, you cannot see a thing. It is perfectly hidden by the surrounding mountains. But from the sky, that's a different story. An airplane could easily look down and see the entire layout of the base. Because of this fatal flaw in geography, the military had to literally lock down the sky itself.
Listen to how serious this gets. If any aircraft even attempts to fly over this zone, they're immediately contacted and ordered to change their route. If a pilot disobeys or just ignores that warning, the U.S. Air Force possesses the absolute authority to shoot the trespassing plane right out of the sky. It is a deadly serious, highly enforced consequence for breaching this invisible wall.
So, as you've seen in this explainer, those empty spaces on a flight map aren't just random gaps. They are incredible stories of survival against mountain winds, terrifying physics inside craters, melted engines from ancient volcanoes, and heavily guarded human secrets. It really makes you wonder, what other hidden secrets and natural forces are quietly controlling where we are allowed to go, right above our heads? Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep asking questions, keep looking up, and I will see you next time.